afternoon, good evening. Okay, now I'm not 100% sure, unfortunately, if my preview had actually worked for you all, but I will quickly go over what tools I'm using and what items you're going to need if you want to follow along. All right, so today we're going to use this mint round. Now you don't have to use the round if you choose not to. All right, you can use paper. I have actually gone ahead and traced out and cut out cardstock or just regular paper, whatever you want to use. We are going to be using white and blue for the main colors. So I do recommend something dark, all right? Something of a dark background. You could even use like a dark blue if you don't have black. For me personally, I have got the titanium white. And I am going to be using a spa blue, which is just a real light. Again, use whatever color you have. Now, for the other kind of accents, something you're going to need very, very little of, I have cherry red. Personally, I grabbed a hold of the burnt orange. So I've got orange and red. I've also got just lamp black. Actually, this one's okay. And then for any of the other accents, I probably will just go ahead and use the glorious gold. However, you could use silver, you could use pearl, have a bright silver here, whatever you like, okay? Once you have those together, I've actually just dropped the white and the blue into my palette first. Now, I have already pre-drawn. What I've got here is I used my compass and I drew a line 1 inch out for each, and then one at 2.5. All right, so we're gonna get started here. I will try to go relatively slow, just to make 100% sure, you know, that everyone can keep up. If you do want me to stop for any reason, if you need me to go back through something, please let me know. All right, before I lay the first dot, I do want to make 100% sure here. All right, I'm going to take our music down. Please let me know at this point if you can hear my voice, all right, if it's at a good level, and if you can see my screen clearly. Also, if you're joining me, it certainly would help if you would drop a quick comment just to let me know where you fall on the scale. If you are absolutely new, a beginner, maybe you're a little bit more intermediate, or maybe you're already well aware of dot mandala or dot painting in general, and you're ready to jump in and you're just kind of hanging out. So again, that would be very helpful. Go ahead and give me some feedback when you have an opportunity. And again, I will be jumping right in. Now, the very first tool that I'm going to grab is the 10. Again, I'm using the Happy Dotting Company tools. If you notice, these are flat-headed tools. If you are following along, make sure that you also are either using a flat-headed tool as well to make sure that you're getting as accurate a size as possible so it will match up. Or if you are going to be using something like nail art tools or the clay balls, for example, keep in mind those sizes are going to be significantly different, and you may need to size up and quite a bit. So you can use the grid here as I go along to help you follow along. All right, so I am going to start with the white. I'm going to move my tools up and away just a little. Okay. I want to get a nice heavy dot here. Get that centered right over the middle. I've got a washcloth here next to me. After each dot, after each use of a color or a size, I do go ahead and wipe my tools off. Okay, so you'll see me off screen for just a second as I do that in between each. Okay, so now that we've got the 10 here in the center, and actually, you know what I'm going to do? Because it's just a smidge this way. Okay. Okay, all right. It's nice and heavy. Then I'm going to jump into a 1.5. Now, especially if you're a beginner or if you haven't practiced these particular sizes before, you do likely want to work on the points. Actually, you know what? Let's see. Let's go blue. Let's make sure that we alternate this, right? Okay. So we're going to put one small dot on each. Dip back in with each dot as well. Okay. Now we should have room enough to put one in between, like so. Now we're going to move up to a 2, and I'm going to switch colors. I'm going to go into the white now. And instead of going directly on the lines, we're going to put our first dot in between 2 of the others. Right in that little crook there. And we're just going to walk those around. Now, as you notice, there is going to be space in between. Oops. And we're going to go back at the end to pull that out. I moved up to a 3, and we are going to go back onto the lines here. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pause for just a quick second because it doesn't look like that is incorrectly. Okay, one moment. Okay. I'm going to go back. Again, we're in a 3. Okay. Now with these, we're going to do the same, and we're going to get one right in the middle. And as you can see, it already moved over to the left. So no, that was my fault. So 4.5, we're going to do one last row. And then we're going to be here on this line, and we're going to start moving our pattern out. We're going to already get into our snowman. So we're just rotating. So this is going to be a 4.5. Okay. And we're just going to drop a dot all the way around. We're just sort of closing off the center. All right, so now we've got our center, and we're going to move over. Now, we want to go back to our 10. So we're going to go right up. We're going to look at these points, and we're going to start with the base of the snowman. Okay, so I'm going to place the 10 right down at the bottom here. Lay that over your line. I'm actually going to get a little more paint. I didn't realize I didn't add a whole lot to my palette. Okay. And I'm not adding anything to it, as you can see today. No mediums whatsoever. All right. Okay. And we're going to land a 10 right over that line. And again, with such a big dot, if you are using some sort of a round-headed tool, just make sure you're kind of compensating for that. Easiest way to do that is just make sure, as you can see here, this 10 is give or take about halfway in between this inch line here. And at this point, if your dots don't look smooth, if they have sort of a rippled pattern to them, or if you can actually see through the dot into the black underneath or whatever color you've chosen, then keep in mind that simply means that it's not loaded up quite enough. Okay, you want to reload your paint at that point. Now for the snowman top, we're going to go down 2. We're going to go into an 8. This is only going to be a 2 snowball snowman. Okay. So you want to get this one, and it's okay. In most cases, you don't really necessarily want to actually touch the 2 dots together. But being this is a little snowman, that's going to be perfectly fine. So I'm getting them pretty darn close to one another, just touching that edge. Okay. And then as you can see, the 8 here, the top, is going to touch this ring. All right. So again, hopefully that helps you determine what tool size to use, or just to kind of make sure that you're sort of on the same grid line with me. All right. So now we've got our snow piles here. We've got these massive, huge snowball men hanging out. Okay, we're not going to do anything additional with them. They're just going to look like blobs for a little bit. They do need to dry before we do anything else. So the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to go into a 3. Okay, and I'm going to go into the blue. And we're going to put a little spacer dot right on the top of the snowman's head. Our snowmen today, unfortunately, do not wear top hats. But I will give a little spacer dot right at the top here. Now we're going to do swooshes. All right, we're going to leave that be for just a moment. For swooshes, my go-to is the dot art tool. I use the 0.5 end because it has just a slight point to it. You can use whatever you've got. Now, personally, because I use the Happy Dotting Company tool set, it does have a flat head on it, and it doesn't lend itself well to doing swooshes, the flat heads. The round heads do. So if you want to, you can use the round headed and you can just dot and pull, and I'll show you what I mean there. But I am using the 2 tool method just because I use flat heads. Okay, so we're going to go into a 4.5 at this point. We are going to be doing 2 sets of swooshes here on the bottom, and then 2 along the top. Okay. So first things first, we're going to get the blue, and you want to load this up pretty well. And what we want to actually, you know what we want to do? I might. on the fly here, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to drop this down a little. I think that's going to work a little bit more simply for us. I'm going to drop down to a 3.5. Okay, so again, get that loaded up really, really well. Okay, we're going to put a dot right down here. Okay, there will be room for 2. Okay, but hang on. We're going to go ahead and put 1 dot here. And again, I'm just going to load that up. Okay. I used to dot it twice. Now what I'm going to do is ideally, I want this to come all the way up. So we want to take your tool, put it down at the bottom here or top, depending on if you're in the same orientation as I am. Put the tip near the top, and then you're just going to draw. Okay. We're going to take this and we're going to draw a line. Okay. Now, as you can see, this line, it's not going to go very far, right? So I'm just going to come back in and dip in and pull. Okay. Around a little bit, dip and pull. Okay. I'm even adding just a tiny bit to the tip. All right, there we go. Okay. Now I've got it kind of stretched out. All right, doesn't look like much at this point. But now I'm going to take this end, midway point of the swoosh, and I'm gently just going to pull it a little as well, just so that you don't see that dip, right? So that you get a smoother head. All right. And then I'm going to do the same on this side. Okay, I'm just going to take it from the midpoint and drop it a little. Okay. All right. Now, as you can see, it looks a little stretched, right? It's a little thin. Because I'm using this kind of pre-printed sort of MDF, your paint is going to soak. Okay. So just like I did here, you may need another drop. You may just want to add it to the tip of the tool. Okay. But at this point, you're just going to draw. Okay. I'm doing this extra slow. Okay. You don't want to grab a hold of the paint and drag it so hard that you're actually scraping your surface. You don't want to do that, because then if you do that, and I'll do that here, you're going to get these lines. Okay, you don't want lines. So you just want to touch the paint ever so gently and bring it forward. Okay. All right. Okay. And I'm going to do the same here. Get that loaded up. Now, this is the one time where I'm actually not cleaning my tools. Okay. I'm not wiping them off in between at all. I want all that extra paint. All right. And with most of these, we're going to have to do another dot. And just ever so gentle. I have a tendency to hold my tool in my hand when I do this. You just lay it down. You can do whatever you want there. All right, and I'm just going to continue right along, and we're going to pull this up. Okay. Now this part is going to take a minute. This swoosh and the next one that we'll be doing are really probably going to take the longest time of our time together today. So just so that you're prepared. All right. And just let all that paint fall off. See, and I still have quite a bit here on the tip because I'm not wiping that off. And that too is helping bring this all the way up. All right. All right, just ever so gentle. And since this also, I'm using a 3.5, this is probably a small enough, I guess you would say small enough dot, that you could use probably one of the largest dot art, or nail art, excuse me, tools like I'm using for the swoosh. I know that I think my largest one that I had in that particular set was a 3. So not a 3.5, but somewhere between the largest nail art tool, and if you use like the clay ball type tools, I think you can probably get a good size, something like a 3.5 here. So you could just do a drop and drag instead of using a second tool. The other reason that I like, and I've kind of more adopted this method, the 2 tools, is because it does feel like you have a little more control, right? Because you can sort of drag and draw and bring things around sort of in any way that you want to. You can kind of color things in, so to speak, right? And I like that. Okay. I will say though, doing swooshes on this MDF, whatever, it's not ideal for someone that is not versed in swooshes. It really isn't. The best surface, I think, to do that is going to be something smooth. Glass is my absolute favorite. Tile, some sort of an acrylic, anything smooth, because your swooshes will go on like butter, right? And it really, really gives you a boost, especially if you're new, to actually get it right. And a lot of the times, the first time when you're doing it on a surface like that, because as you can see, I mean, this takes almost 2 or in some cases almost 3 applications, just because it soaks the paint. You don't get a nice, beautiful curve. Okay. Now, the other thing that I could have done here, and I didn't think about it until it was too late, and then the weather wasn't cooperating for me personally when I set this up. The other thing you can do, though, to kind of help that along a little bit is going to be, if you work on a surface like this MDF, for example, what you can do is spray it first. Before you've laid your grid lines down, you can varnish it. Use something like a crystal clear Krylon, something like that, and give it a real light mist, because then it does give it a nice smooth finish, which certainly does help. Okay. Now, let me see here. Now we are going to do another one going the opposite direction, and that one is going to be white. Okay, I'm just cleaning off my tool here. Now, you could, and I think I am going to, I'm going to move back up to a 4 because I've got more room here. and I'm going to go into the white. And what we're going to do is now we're going to go the opposite direction. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put the dot right here at the tail, underneath this grid line, right at the end. Okay, now, oh my goodness gracious, let's pick that up. Okay, that slipped right out of my hands. All right, let me wipe that off. So now with this, the only difference, and I'll fix this in a moment, the only difference is going to be, instead of starting here in the middle with this, what I'm going to do is actually start at this edge. Same place, sort of middle. And I'm going to bring the swoosh down and match the curve of the one below it. Okay. Then I'm going to take this side and I'm going to draw it just down, right? Just so I don't have that really sharp, I don't even know what you call it, like the edge. Okay. And now I can take the paint, we're going to load it up here, and we're just going to pull that down. Okay. Okay. I'm going to dot that twice. Okay, so we're going to take this midline, draw around. See how this like looks like a comma? I don't want that. I like them nice and smooth, so I'm going to take the edge and just bring that down. And then essentially we're coloring in. Okay. And then we're just going to go back in as many times as needed. Make sure that we don't have any lines here. Okay. So hopefully, with having done all these, it's getting a little easier. Or if you still don't feel all that comfortable, at least you're getting a little faster. Okay. All right, so we're going to just continue along here. Ever so gentle on your stroke, coming down. Do my best, try not to leave any space. All right. Almost done. We've got 2 more. Not too bad. Hopefully everyone is keeping up. Now I've got some spots in the blue that as already it's starting to dry. You can kind of see through. So once I'm done with this last one, well, actually, you know what? I'll wait a minute. I don't want to touch anything on the top, even if, you know, you screw up. It's much easier if you're going to put a dot over it, to do it the instant while it's wet or after it's completely dry. Nothing really in between, because then you run the risk of having your wet kind of globs of paint get moved around, and that's not good either. Okay. Now we have this space here, okay, and we want to drop one more swoosh in here. We may be even able to get away with a 6. We can get away with a 6. All right, so we're going to go up to a 6 here. And I'm going to go into the blue. Now this one's going to be just ever so slightly different. Let's see here. Okay, that 6 is going to fill up that space almost perfect. Okay. Now for this one, we're just going to fill this space. So I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to run right through the center and down. Then we're going to take the left side, bring it to the matching point, and the same on this side. Okay. Now, it doesn't have to be all the way down. This is kind of like drawing the lines that you're going to color in. All right, I'm going to pull that all the way down. Okay. So that should fit the space. We're going to do that twice. Get a nice heavy dot in there. Pull straight down. Left side and right side. And then color in anything that you might have missed. So hopefully at this point, oops, I have a little puppy dog fur. Okay. So hopefully at this point you can see that this all comes all close together, pulls right at this grid line. So you're kind of filling up this space. Okay, let's get this curved around and fix that. I'm going to say that one got off like crazy because apparently I had that little puppy dog fur in my paint and it just was like, nope, I want to go this way. So we're going to have one that's a little oblong, kind of weird shaped, and that's okay. Now these will be the last swooshes, so if you're sick of them by now, that's okay. We're done with them after this. It's only going to be for the inner circle here. Okay. Should be looking something like that. At this point, if that particular center area here is not quite filled in with your snowman, feel free to grab another size, a smaller size, for example, do another swoosh, do a couple of filler dots, whatever you like. Okay, you do not have to follow the pattern exactly. And if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. All right, so the next step, now what we're gonna do is get some walked dots up here. Now, we want them to be on these lines, okay? We probably want only 4 of them, so we'll use these points here. Doesn't necessarily matter which ones, obviously. All right, so what I'm gonna do, let's go into, we'll probably stick with a blue. How about a 6? Yeah, I think that'll work just fine. All right, so let's take the blue. And we're gonna put right on top of that initial landing dot, we're gonna get the center of a walk. Center of a walked dot. All right, so skip 1. Go to the next. Skip 1, go to the next one. Okay, so we've got 4. Okay. Now, on top of this, we're gonna do, well, let's see. How large do we want to start? How about a 2? Now, actually, I can put that down. So we're going to go with a 2 in the white, and we're just going to place 1 dot here on the top. Wipe that off, and we're going to go down to a 1.5. Now the 1.5 is going to be the actual walk along the edges. So we're going to take the 1.5. Let me get that loaded up. I'm running out of paint again. All right. Actually, I'm going to add a smidge more before I do that, just to make sure I have enough in my palette. Okay. Now, You may or may not get the same number of dots, but you should be able to get roughly about 6 going around. Okay. You may also want to consider wiping your tool off every, I don't know, 2 or 3 walked sets. The reason for that is, and I've had people argue with me over this, funnily enough, the paint will build up on your tool. And even though it doesn't seem like that big of a deal, especially when it comes to the smaller sizes, you're going to notice that buildup very, very quickly. And you're not going to end up with the same size dots consistently throughout. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to go up a little farther, and we're going to go to a 3.5, and we're going to switch colors. We're going to go back into the blue. We're going to add the 3.5 right on top here. Now, instead of going down just a half a point, I do want these petals to be a little more triangular shape, a little more pointed. So when you want that, you're going to drop down an extra maybe size or 0.5. So we're going to go down to a 2.5 on this one. And there's something I'm going to do a little different here. So we're going to take the 2.5. And I'm just going to lay 2 dots. Now, because we're changing the sizes pretty dramatically, you may or may not see that the dots actually fit, quote unquote, fit into the walked line below. Okay. All right. So for each 2 dots, essentially we're going down a size, right? A 0.5 for each walk. So what you'll see at this point is this one's going to be about a 2. Okay. So now I'm going to go into a 1.5. I'm going to drop my size by 1. Okay. Then we're going to come back in and we're going to do the rest of the dots. So it should be 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, is this 100% necessary to do it this way? It's not. Okay, but I still like showing you this just because I think people sort of get into this idea that you have to use one tool to complete the entire walked dot row. And you don't. And sometimes it's nicer if you don't. All right, so now we've got those 4 points. Okay, just wiping this off here. I've got paint all over my hands. I think I touched my cloth and kind of wiped stuff all over me. All right, okay, get my hands dried off here. We're gonna do one more row. We're gonna move up to a 4. Okay, now this dot of a 4 should be right on the crosshairs. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And again, we're just going down the size for each one. There we are. And again, half size down. And just bring those in. All right. Okay. So now we've got our 4 points laid out. We're going to get some fillers in here. Okay. Because as you can see, the smaller dot for the snowman is more or less dry, but the heavier point in the center for the larger dot is not. Okay, you may even see that it's a little bit shiny still. Yours is probably the same. Okay, so even though we do need to do our snowman, we want to save that almost right up to the end. All right, so now I want to do some fillers here. I'm going to actually put in, well, we can do 2 things. Let's start with the other. What I want to do is bring a couple of dots here to make a crown, okay? And then we may still have some space here, which we are going to fill up very likely with some additional swooshes, okay? But I want to do everything around the edge, or as much as possible that we can, before we start touching our snowman. It's going to be the very, very last thing that we do is to touch him up, okay? So I'm going to grab a 4, excuse me. We're going to continue into the blue. And here, I'm going to take and put a dot either side of the line. I'm going to add a little more paint to my palette here. Then we're going to take that same and we're going to put a dot right in the center on the top of those. Then I'm going to take a 3 and then just to kind of top this off, we're going to do a couple of walks. Okay. All right, just follow the line. We're going to do another set of these on top of here. We're going to do these in white, and then we're going to get into our fillers. Okay. So again, a 4. I'm going to add in a dot on either side of the line. Here. We are going to accentuate these two, so. Now this is the part where you get to be a little freer. You kind of get to splash some things around if you want to, so to speak. Okay, so what we're going to do, whatever, you can start with whatever size you like, but I'm going to stick with the 4. Okay, what I'm going to do, okay, and I'm just going to randomly put a dot there. Okay, I'm going to randomly put a dot here. And one here. And one here. Oops, that was a little too quick. Okay, so I've got a couple random ones. Gonna do the same with the blue. Just do it somewhere, probably I would say within the first 2 grid lines there. All right. Now that we've got these are what I'm gonna just call a little sparkle, right? These are little stars or little sparkles. Gonna go into it too. And I'm just gonna do a couple walk dots. All right. Okay. We're gonna do the 4 corners. You can do them however you choose if you don't necessarily like it this way. Okay. Pick whatever direction you like. You can kind of turn them around a little. Depending on where you put your dot, you might have a little more room in one space than another. Right? But you kind of do want to maybe just rotate the direction that you're going to put the little star's arms, sparkles arms, just so it looks maybe a little more random, right? Oops, kind of running out of paint again. Okay. All right, we'll do that same thing with the blue. Do as many or as few as you like. Oops. The size on these, you can also just mix and match a little bit. You don't have to use the same sizes here. You can kind of curl the tips if you want to. I'm just sort of doing it straight just because it's nice and quick and easy. You can maybe do a dot of each size, maybe a 4, 3, a 2, something like that. Okay. Now I'm going to go down to a 1. I'm going to add more paint, goodness gracious, today. Didn't think I was going to be using that much. All right, so now I'm going to swap the colors a little. I'm in a 1, and then I'm just going to do 2 dots here. Okay, so that we have our little sparkles, little decorations. I suppose if you had wanted to, especially with the smaller tools. Oh, I didn't want that one white, but you know what? We're going to have a white one here. You could do swooshes. You could do little mini ones for this section if you would like. I tried that and I particularly didn't like it all that much. So I'm just going to stick with a couple small dots. And as you can see, I am not wiping off my tool in between any of these. They're just kind of real loose and real random. So I don't really care if the sizes or the shapes of the sparkles are a little funny, because these are just fun little things, right? Up in the sky, whatever. We're almost done. Once we get through this, then we're going to do our snowman. And that should finish us out here. At that point, Hopefully everything is dry. And actually, we have a couple of little spaces in the middle too that we might address. But we don't have to. Okay. All right. I'm going to check on my snowman. Okay. That one is still a touch wet. Okay, let's move on to our snowman. For the snowman, first off, I'm gonna get my red out. Okay, this is cherry red. I'm actually not going to put anything in my palette because I'm going to use so little of this. So I'm just going to use it right out of the lid. Okay. I'm going to grab a 1.5 and you're going to hate me. We're going to do swooshes. I promise it's worth it though. All right. So I've got the snowman upside down just because it's easier for me to do it this way. And I have less chance of reaching over something. Okay, so I'm going to load up my 1.5. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take and put a dot about here. Okay, and then I'm going to take a dot and I want one probably about right here. Okay. Now with this one, because I have such a small tool in my hand, even though it is a flat, all right, I'm going to drag it across. Okay, so load that. I'm going to take and hold this down and then I'm going to drag it and I'm going to pull it across right through the center of the dots. Okay. Snowman now has a scarf. Okay. So one dot there. One here. Take the first one and I'm just going to drag it up and across and over. Now you could also, see, you could drop it just on the edge of the snowman here. That's okay. You do not have to get it right in between. You know, his scarf can be a little flowy if you choose. You can do a different color too. Hopefully this is the fun part. Okay. We're almost done with our scarf. All right. So we have 8 little scarved snowmen now. Now we got to make sure that they've got eyes. I'm going to go into a 2. Actually, let's do our buttons first. Let's do 2. Same thing with this. I don't really want to add this to my palette. I'm not going to use that much. So I'm just going to shake up my paint. Going to dip right out of the lid. All right, so we're at a 2. Let's give you some buttons. Oops, did I move it? I did. Okay. Be very gentle. The center should be dry, okay? If it is not dry, wait. Don't screw it up on the last things, okay? Just be very careful, because even if the surface is dry enough for me to top dot on this, there is the very real possibility, and very high likelihood, honestly, that underneath the top crust, because these are such large dots, quote unquote, is that if you were to break that surface, that it's still wet in the center, okay? And you don't want to drag that wetness up through the crust and mess everything up, okay? So touch very, very, very lightly. Do your best not to scratch over it, okay? Gonna wipe this off, and I'm gonna move down to a 1.5. Gonna get a quick drink. Okay, so now 1.5. Okay, so it's eyes. Make sure you leave room. Okay, these are going to go at the top. Okay. Now we've got 8 little snowmen with eyes, buttons, and scarves. Close that up, wipe my tool off. And now for their nose. I'm going to go into a 0.5 for this. The orange that I grabbed is just burnt umber. Or burnt orange, burnt umber. Whew. Okay. Remember what I said just a second ago about the buttons? Be careful not to scratch it, because you could open up the kind of the crust of the paint. We're going to scratch it. We are going to make a little swoosh, all right? So if your top dot already had a problem, you need to stop and wait a moment. Don't do this if it's even remotely wet, okay? All right, but what we're gonna do, we're gonna take the 0.5 here. Do we want it this? No, we don't, okay. So take your dot, and we're gonna put it center and just pull, okay? That's why I'm using the 0.5. Small, small, small. Put it just to the right of the center and pull. Okay. Just to the right and pull. there we go. We have completed 8 snowmen. Okay. All right, let me get that wiped off. Okay. Now the other part of this, now these are, let's see, how do I want? I kind of like this. This is probably the only Craft Smart paint that I actually have. It's the bright silver, and it's almost a pearl looking silver, and I do quite like it, especially when it comes to highlighting the blue. Okay, but I also have gold. My husband says the gold looks better. I don't know why. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it at his direction here. And I have glorious gold. All right. Now, these ones in here should be dry. And these were a 4. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 3, which is one size down at the original. Okay. And I am going to put a dot right at the bottom. Bloop. Okay. You do have to be careful. You do not want to get your hands in anything else. And honestly, I would probably wait until everything was dry, the snowman, to do this just in case. So if I did slide my hand through this, I wouldn't be getting everything messed up. Do it in kind of stages, but it's okay. You can highlight this again with whatever color you like. That could be silver, that could be zinc. I actually like zinc a lot. Okay. I'm going to use that same size. Oops. Now this is a little bit more your choice too, where and what color of dots that you want to use here. But essentially I'm just accenting all of these little areas. I do think it adds a lot more depth to what's going on. I'm just going to shake this up a little bit, get a little bit more paint. There we go. And then the other thing that I'm going to do is just take the silver and the gold, and we're going to dot and kind of speckle the top here. All right. So with these ones, and I know some of them weren't all that close together, but here's how we correct that. Okay. We're going to take and just put one right smack in the center and then on top, and it brings those nice together. All right, kind of let that touch. There. And the space magically disappears. Okay. Now, like I said, the other part of this is, see this line across here? I'm kind of not going to go in between that. Let's see. Have a little fun, get a little random. I think, yeah. Okay. I'm I'm going to also do the same here. Since I did on the lower part, let's keep it consistent. And then, like I said, I do have the silver. You know what? I might even just use zinc instead. I'm not sure. The zinc and the gold, I think, will look fine together. And then I'm just going to dot up some of the area in between our little sparkles. If you want to call them stars, you can call them stars. You can call them sparkles, whatever. Doesn't matter. You know, the little thingies up here. All right. All right, we've got all of those. Okay. And then, like I said, I think I like the zinc better. So I'm going to finish it off with the zinc. The little click sound that you hear is in some of my thicker paints. I actually do drop some ball bearings in there, 1/4 inch, just to make the mixing easier. Let's see, what have I got left for? All right, so I'm going to do probably a 4. Yeah, okay. All right, what I'm going to do here, I'm taking and just dropping a zinc on top of the swoosh that goes down. Especially our little misshapen one there. Okay. Like I said, just get a little crazy. Do whatever you like over here. Okay. And then the last, you know what I might do is another, maybe smaller. I'm going to a 2. Let's get some smaller ones in here. Like I said, this is the kind of fun part. This is just the sort of random filler. This kind of gives it, in my opinion, anyways, this kind of gives it the little charm, the little child. Let the kid in you run a little bit wild, right? Maybe I'll do a couple of those in gold, and then I think we're gonna call it, right? Okay, anywhere else? I might see a little spot that's bare. Okay. There. And if we want any other decorations on the inside, the only thing that I would probably think to say, maybe on the other swoosh, we can do a silver here. The zinc on the swooshes. And the only reason we really do this is because it gives it, like I said, that little bit of lift, right? It's not so two-dimensional and flat. So yes, I'm purposely not refilling the paint after I do this one. I'm making this dot a little, oops, smaller. Well, not that small. Not that small. Okay. There. Now it's a little crazy. It's a little bit whimsical. It's a little fun. Okay. I think we are done at this point. I usually do not put anything on the center dot. That's just me. I don't know. Kind of drives me crazy a lot of the times because it doesn't feel centered enough. So I'm going to leave that as is. So I certainly hope that this was fun for you guys. I hope you maybe learned something. If you were a little uncomfortable, perhaps maybe with swooshes or something like that, hopefully this helped. I am going to leave this up. You will be able to see this as a recorded session. So if you want to come back to it, or maybe, after the stream is over, if you're just stopping by to visit, it'll be up. All right. If you have any questions, if you run into anything along the way, feel free to drop a comment. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic afternoon. Happy holidays, and take care, guys. I appreciate you watching.